Hello and welcome. I'm Jane Foster from ORM, and it is my pleasure to host this GRDC Society of Precision Agriculture Australia event on farm autonomy. During today's presentations, you are invited to join the conversation using the chat feature. Today's program has time allocated for questions and discussion, so please take the opportunity to be involved. I would now like to invite Tom Giles, who is the Senior Manager for Enabling Technologies at GRDC, to welcome you to today's event on behalf of GRDC and SPA. Welcome, Tom.
Development Corporation. Welcome to today's webinar, Paving the Way for Autonomy, which forms part of the Grain Automate initiative on behalf of Australian grain growers, and it's aimed at accelerating the adoption of machine automation, autonomy and digital technologies across the grains industry. Firstly, in the spirit of reconciliation, we acknowledge the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. We pay our respects to their elders, past, present and emerging, and extend that respects to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders peoples today. Well, by 2027, our targeted outcome for Grain Automate is to ensure about 80% of growers have the knowledge, understanding and capabilities required to seamlessly implement more advanced and profitable applications of machine and implement automation. Today's webinar is the first in a series of national online events targeting growers, grower groups, agronomists, consultants and suppliers. In this session, we'll provide information about the systems, processes and people impacts on the road to implementing on-farm automation, as well as hearing firsthand from a grower who's incorporated autonomous systems on their farm. Thank you, first up, to our Grain Automate program partner SPA for organising today's event. I also acknowledge our speakers, Dr. Emma Leonard of AgriKnowHow, WA grower Tom Longmire, and our panel including Peter Thompson from CNH, Jake McHugh from John Deere, and Tom Holcombe from SwarmFarm Robotics. Finally, a big thanks to our technology partners ORM and Power AV for hosting today's webinar. Please note that this webinar is being recorded and will be made available on the GRDC and SPA websites. Thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to an engaging, informative session.
Thank you very much, Tom. Now I'd like to introduce our first guest presenter, Emma Leonard. Emma has over 25 years' experience of translating technical information into practical application. Emma recently completed her PhD on change management in agriculture in 2022, consolidating her experience in communication, adoption and farm management. She founded AgriKnowHow in 2002, working since that time from her base on the Yorke Peninsula. Emma is a Nuffield farming scholar, a Churchill scholar, and an Associate Fellow of the Royal Agricultural Societies. It's my pleasure to welcome Emma, and I'll hand over to you to kick us off for today.
Good morning, Jane. Good morning, everyone. Or good afternoon. It's just gone 12 here. A century ago, the big change for us was from horses to tractors, so mechanisation. Today, the big technology change is about the automation of tasks. Both changes change the human's role from less physical to more mental activities. But increasing automation is much more than just adopting a tool. It really requires a mindset change. So today I want to be talking to you about thinking about understanding your processes, understanding about how data flows through your systems, and about the need to upskill the teams and actually engage in the whole everyone in your team on that journey. This might all seem like a bit of an Olympian task, very on point at the moment, but hopefully if we take a structured approach, we'll all be winning gold medals. So let's have a look at what we're trying to do. I've got more buttons here than I know what to press, so let me just go down here. So what are we really thinking about when we're talking about autonomy? Really simply put, it's the next stage in, sorry, we'll go back to that slide. It's the next stage in mechanisation. So automation is a stepping stone towards autonomy. I find it much easier if we break it down and really deconstruct things. So all of our jobs are filled with tasks, and each task consists of three elements. So we have the diagnosis, the identifying a problem or an opportunity. We have the decision stage where we're assimilating information, analysing it, and actually synthesising that to make a decision. And don't forget, making no decision is actively making a decision. So a decision to decide not to do something. And also, finally, we have the performance of the task, the activity that we're doing. And the activity might be as simple as actually saying, okay, I've shut that file down and the job is completed. But tasks rarely occur in isolation. Multiple tasks join together, and that becomes a process. And thinking about processes is really, really important when we're going to more automation and eventually to autonomy. So you're ultimately joining processes together to make a system. You're probably running a no-till cropping system, and that has specific processes for no-till that relate to soil and stubble management, to weed control and seeding. So again, it's sort of that breaking it down to build it back up again. The other thing that's important to remember with any task, that it can be delivered or executed in different ways. So traditionally, we executed tasks manually. Over the years, we've got more data. So, we used to pay a check. If you're young, ask your parents what they are. Now we do online banking. That's basically the same task, but performed going from a manual to a digital approach. As the task becomes more automated, elements of the diagnosis and the decision and even the action are carried out by using models, sensors, machines, etc. So we're thinking about auto steer, we're thinking about variable rate, things like facial recognition and other forms of biometric authentication are all examples of automation. And the more automated we become, the more important connectivity becomes. When a task is carried out autonomously, there is minimal human involvement. However, as Tom's going to talk to us about shortly, while the current robotic tractors or even robotic vacuum cleaners perform a task autonomously, there are other parts of the process that still need to be done more manually or using some degree of automation. So, for example, filling the sprayer or emptying the vacuum cleaner are often needing to be done manually. So there are degrees of automation and autonomy. Now, this is a big slide, and I headed this up the 3 whats. So we've talked about the tasks and what is autonomy. We're going to jump into shortly, what do you want to change? But the second bit that's really also is important is to know what tasks, what jobs you find to be rewarding, because you don't want to automate everything and you don't want to automate yourself out of existence. So in terms of thinking about our mental health, we can improve our work-life balance, etc., with automation, but we don't want it to take away what we really want to enjoy doing on our farming businesses. So not everything has to be automated, not everything has to be going absolutely autonomous either. So we've got a bit of an understanding about thinking about the questioning. I wanted to work through a bit of an example here, and some of you might be familiar with Simon Sinek's book, Start With Why. Being able to clearly explain to another person why you want to make a change is really, really important. And that might be just personal values that you want to make a change. It's not a criticism, but being able to articulate it often actually comes out being able to define the change more clearly and how then you might want to do it. And in change management, communication and collaboration between managers and right the way across the team is really important. Changes tend to fail because people don't understand what's in it for them. And so that's why it's really important to be able to articulate your why. So I'm taking the example that I'd like on our farm to be able to reduce pesticide inputs, particularly fungicides is what I'm looking at the moment. The reason I want to do that is because of primarily 2 reasons. Because of OH&S issues, I don't like these chemicals. I don't like having them around in our environment if we can avoid it, and I don't like our staff having to be handling them. And also, we really are considering how we're going to get to net zero. So every time I can be more efficient and have greater efficacy of a fungicide that I put on, it potentially offers me the chance to reduce a pass. So those are my main reasons. Obviously, also, I'm thinking about market acceptance, environmental impacts, and of course, cost savings. So can automation help me achieve this goal? From why, I also need to think about where when I'm going to be talking about automation. So here I've changed the task diagram to include all the tasks within the process of pest control. The actual application of the pesticide, the fungicide, is just about one in just about 10 tasks. So it depends how you want to break it down in your business. And here I've modified the model to include them under that, whether they're diagnosis, decision, or performance activities. When we're changing to increasingly automate, it's really important to understand the steps in your process. It's also really important to understand where those steps might require data to flow to and from within your business. And so again, we've broken down the business into 3 areas. And it's easy to think, oh, there's masses of areas within my business, but really and truly, there are 3 things we all do in a business and all farming businesses. We administer, we do production and resource management, and we do sales and marketing tasks. So it's a simplistic way, but it tends to generally work. And as a process becomes more automated, the data needs to increasingly be interoperable between these 3 core function areas to be accessible by different softwares and different applications. So you might find it useful to start trying to break your processes down in this sort of way to create these sort of diagrams. So on the left-hand side, we've got our administrative tasks. We've got our administrative and production and sales and marketing, our core functions. And then across, we've got the types of tasks or the types of data that we might be looking at. Then I've quickly added the arrows, and I'm looking at where the data from the production task areas might be flowing back into administration and sales and marketing and might be flowing to and from. So our management records are absolutely key. And things, even activities like cleaning and maintaining, needs to be thinking about going back into our management records, for example. Our employee OH&S records need to have details about what sprays and things they've been actually applying so that we can ensure that we know if there are issues, health issues or anything later down the track. The where is not only about where within the business where the data flows, it can also, or it should also be thought about in terms of where the data will be generated and might need to be flow from in a physical location. So is it coming from satellites and sensors and things like that? Is it being generated or used within the farm office, out in the paddock, in a shed? Or is it being used remotely by a third party or even parties within our business, but remotely? So these are all questions that need to be considered before we really start then jumping into the how. To reduce fungicide inputs and meet my WIDEs, I need technology if I'm going to be automating it. So I've gone, okay, what are the jobs I want that technology to actually do for me? And that really, in simplistic terms, it needs to help me get more appropriate application and more effective application. So if we break that back down, and it also needs to enable those data flows that I was just mentioning. So those are the 3 things within fungicide automation I'm really focusing in on. More appropriate application means I need to understand, is that disease out there? What stage in the crop growth am I at? Is it going to be they offer a cost benefit in controlling? Are the forecast conditions likely to exacerbate the level of disease that's already there? Things like that. Where in the more effective application, it's how am I actually going to ensure that only the bits of crop that are sprayed need to be sprayed, and the bits that do get sprayed, how effective and the improved efficacy of the spray that goes on. So can I do this currently with automation? Well, sadly, no, I could not actually go out and automate this process at the moment. That's not such a bad thing, because that gives me the opportunity to apply this thinking process and really do my research and identify where those data flows need to be and how those technologies that are out there might fit together. And eventually we will get to a stage where all these bits can be stitched together. What's out there now that I'm considering, we're looking at a BioScout system. There's a really nice article about this in the one of the recent GRDC supplements, and that's an automated spore collection and weather station, and that's linked to disease models. There are other, obviously, we've got the robots coming out there that are able to do variable rate spraying and with section control and things like that. And there are also other technologies out there that are improving efficacy of spray by getting deeper penetration into the canopy. In future, there's a lot of technologies coming through, but we're not there at the moment. So we've looked at the what, why, where, and how, but who's going to deliver all of these for me? We are still going to need people, as I said at the beginning, but these people are going to probably have slightly different jobs. I mean, I've still called this an administration manager, but we're really going to need people that can manage data, that know how to store and analyze data. And we are also going to need people on the ground that are able to maintain and prepare this type of equipment. So there's going to be more supervising and less actual practical sitting in tractors and things like that. But we are still going to need people within our business that do these jobs. And of course, we are still going to need managers and advisors overseeing investments and actually diagnosing where we're wanting to deploy robots and things like that. These two chappies down the bottom right-hand side of the screen here are supposed to represent your change manager and your change buddy. Change management theory shows that if someone is given the responsibility to actually oversee the implementation of a change, it's much more likely to be successful. Now, when I looked at this in my PhD, I found family farming businesses preferred to work much more holistically and everybody was involved. But at the end of the day, if you're going to ensure that you've taken it from the very start, evaluated your starting points, identified your targets, and then fitted all the bits in between to get that real successful change with your whole team engaged, it is really valuable to have somebody that is ultimately going to just make sure all the steps are taken and in the right orders. That's a hard task when you're in a family farming business, and which is why I encourage people to think about getting a change buddy. Find somebody that's doing a similar change in a similar business that you can work with and bounce your ideas off. It might not be so easy, but I'm hoping that maybe with Grain Automate, that might be something that we're also able to help with. But I really encourage you to consider about investing in training and upskilling staff so that they are able to take on the roles that your business is likely to need in the future. So how does autonomy fit into your business? I'm very happy if anybody screenshots any of these slides, because there's questions here that hopefully they will be helpful to you. But these are the sort of overarching questions. You know, how do you justify your why? Where are you with each task, and where do you want to change how it's actually performed? How does that data flow around your systems and between the three key focus areas? Is there market ready? Are there market ready solutions for all these things, for the connectivity, the data integration, etc.? And if there aren't, you know, how far down the line do you think they might be? Have you got to, how will the jobs change? What's the skills and training going to be needed? Who's that team person that's got the skills and passion to lead the change? They don't have to be the senior manager. Often we found they had the poorest digital skills and they probably shouldn't have been leading the change. It should have been one of the younger members of the team being given greater responsibilities. And of course, at the end of the day, we always need to know that value proposition. How much benefit will automation actually bring you? I'd just like to finish up with this slide. And again, please feel free to take a screenshot of it. I'm sure it will eventually be into the Grain Automate Hub, which is where we're going to be putting more and more of these resources to help in the education and in the change management. But these are some resources that I encourage you to consider and have a look up. And this change guide really encapsulates all the key areas that you need to consider in making a change. Knowing where you are at the moment, where you're starting from, looking at the steps, how you're going to travel, and where you're actually ending up wanting to be. And of course, who you're going to be traveling with. So at the end of the day, enjoy the journey. Automation is here to help us. It might seem a little hard at sometimes, and it's really important to understand that if it's done systematically, it can be really rewarding, but people will react differently to the change. It's really easy to think you're talking clearly, as I'm told many times at home, and the person receiving that message has no idea what they're what I'm talking about when it comes to these higher levels of automation and things. But understand your why, know your processes, map your data flows, communicate clearly, and engage with your whole team, and you're going to be well on the way to having successful change. So thank you, and back to you, Jane.
Thanks very much, Emma. That was a great presentation to kick us off today. Now, we are going to launch a little poll also that we're inviting farmers, farm employees and advisors working in this space to participate in, which will be running over on the poll tab. And I'll now take a few audience questions. We do have a couple for you, Emma, and we will have to keep them brief in the interest of time, but I'll fire those across to you now. So I guess we had a couple of, interoperability and connectivity, but what do you see are the main barriers to adoption in this space?
Look, I think we've got to stop talking about barriers and actually just be thinking about the bigger picture. So then we can explain to those providing the services what we really need. So that's why I'm encouraging people to think about their data flows. At the moment, most of our processes remain unmapped. So it's very hard for those that can deliver to us to really understand what we need to be interoperable and the data flows. But yes, they are difficult areas. It's a little bit like we had with Isobus back with the early days of PA, and I'm sure there's still people out there saying we're tearing our hair out because something doesn't talk to each other. But it will keep improving is all I can say. When tractors were first introduced, there was something like 80 or 90 tractor producers just in the States. There were people trying to trigger the combustion with dynamite. So, these things take time to evolve into a cohesive system. But that's why I really encourage people to map their data flows and understand their processes so they can share what their needs are with those that are supplying.
Great. Thanks, Emma. I might just follow on with one other question, if we can just answer this one fairly quickly. But data management seems to be one of the biggest starting points on the road to autonomy, which I think leads on what you just said. So where would be a good starting point when you might have a lot of years of data that's not digitised?
I think farm management, having good farm management systems, software. So you've really got all your cost analysis in there. I think also making sure we're talking to grain growers here mainly, so making sure you've got your paddock boundaries mapped. And those two things can be a great springboard into many other options. And again, I think Tom might talk a little bit about some of those issues.
Great. Thank you so much to you, Emma, for joining us to start us off. We'll have to draw the discussion to a close there, just in the interest of time. Thanks to everyone for your questions, and thank you also to our presenter, Emma Leonard. So now I will have to introduce, or not have to, I would love to introduce our next presenter, Tom Longmire. Tom's a farmer from Beaumont, Western Australia. That's located 110 kilometres northeast of Esperance. He completed a degree in farm management at Marcus Oldham College in 2019. After completing his study, Tom has returned to the family business Tom's helped with the development and adoption of PA on farm since returning and has a keen interest in its implementation. This has seen the business move into autonomy with the adoption of a SwarmBot in 2023, and the business believes that PA will continue to have a major role in our farming systems in the future. Thanks for joining us today, Tom, and I now invite you to share your experiences of autonomy with our audience.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Jane. If you can bring up the slideshow, thanks, that'd be great.
You can't, there we go.
Yep, there we go. So as I sort of mentioned, we're where the red star is, about 100 k's northeast of Esperance. We're in about 400 mil cropping or rainfall, predominantly winter, so all winter cropping. We've been doing controlled traffic for over 10 years now with a 12-18-36 system. We've been doing variable rate for the last 17 years, and we've had a swarm farm for the last 18 months on farm, which has been a game changer. And a lot of these sort of bits come from a keen interest in precision ag in our business. So from a holistic view at PA, we sort of look at it, all comes back to exactly what Emma said. The mapping is critical. These sort of core 6 parts of our PA all interlink and all feed into our decision making regarding fertiliser, varieties, and the whole way we actually structure our rotation. So, a big sort of part is, or key part is to have those base layers of your paddock maps and file structure, like naming structures, bang on, because all the data flows very easily when everything's called the exact same, everything's named perfectly. Without that, it is always a battle to move between those different categories, and especially as we're starting to add the autonomy and a on-farm weather network across the farm, that it's becoming critical. So our SwarmBot, we've got an 18-metre haze boom with a 3,000 litre tank and weed cameras for green on brown spraying. We've also got a 1-tonne bait spreader built by PJ Green that we recently took on in May. The autonomy has been autonomous operations has been a big goal for us that we've been looking at for a while. It wasn't just a rash decision. So in 2016, Dad and I and a few other people from Esperance did an autonomous tour to the East Coast and went and visited SwarmFarm when they were a 6-metre machine and they were still on Land Cruiser hubs, and went down to Beefwood and had a look at the autonomous Fendt and a few other people or businesses that were trying different bits. So, it's been a slow progress, and once they hit the 18-metre width and 3,000 tank, that's when we could see the logistical benefit and the capacity to actually cover hectares. So ours is on a 3-year lease and ownership structure, and we think we're getting about 12 to 14 hectares an hour. We have a lot of lakes, so our open paddocks are going quite well, and then some of our lakes where it slows down the turn, we notice that work rate drop. For us, our moisture, like being in a dryland cropping system, our summer moisture is the only moisture we can actually control, and that summer profile is critical for us moving into a growing season. So where we found our biggest inefficiency with managing that was during harvest. Being on the coast, we get a lot of summer or harvest rainfall traditionally, so we didn't have the capacity to just probably spray as efficiently as we can. So with this robot, we're sort of following 4 or 5 days behind the header. So by the time we finish harvest, we're sort of 2/3 of the way through our first pass of summer spraying. Here's a video of our bait spreader that we recently got going. So That has an 18-metre spread width and can do between 1 and 10 kilos. So all our mice baits, snail baits, that's sort of what we're aiming. And especially for canola, we have a lot of issues with slaters and earwigs. So if we can go with transcend baits treated with fipronil within a day behind the seeder, that's our end goal, to have it most of it killed before any of the crop starts germinating. So some of the benefits that we're finding, being on a lease, we've got no depreciation on the SwarmBot, so it's encouraging us to use it more, like cover more hectares, which when you've got 1 to 3%, some of those weeds like flea vein and marshmallow, it actually is economical to go out and target them, and they're the weeds that we battle with. So we've done nearly 8,000 hectares total across the 18 months we've had it of spraying, and so with that, we're sort of we're also getting over a 50% or $50,000 depreciation saving on our SB over summer. So hopefully over 4 years of ownership with our SP, we'll actually be able to get potentially another half year or a year of ownership due to the reduced summer spraying. We also, what we've found is that it's not a change in, you're not saving labour, it's a change in labour. So instead of sitting out there all night driving a camera boom, your role is to make sure it's filled up, to make sure it is all set to be able to complete a whole night, which has made it easy. So instead of myself sitting out there all night, I can make sure it's full and then get back up at 6 o'clock and go and fuel it, and then go and complete other tasks. So with going at 10 kilometres an hour, the weed, it's very accurate. So we're hitting cotyledon and canola comfortably with the settings that we're on. So we're very confident that as it's going across, we're hitting all weeds. We haven't seen any misses with how we've got it set up, and you've got no dust. So in summer, on a dry summer, we really battle with the dust on wheel tracks when we're summer spraying normally. So we don't have any of those issues of dust, and all your corners, because it's slowing down at 3 k's an hour of spraying speed, you're actually killing the weeds very well. Compared to the boom whip where they sort of half die normally. So another big part of it is that we're also saving water. So this year it's very dry here, and we've had to cart in 400,000 to 500,000 litres of water for in-crop spraying. And so with the weed use over summer, we actually saved 250,000 litres of water. Some of the issues and improvements, as you can see on that picture there, they're building the interior second lap so that we don't have triangle misses across all our headlands. So that's sort of just been built into progress, and the obstacle detection, being a good thing, is very sensitive. So that's up to me to start tidying up the corners of our paddocks and overhanging trees so that I don't throw off the sensors, so we can get that efficiency. It is time consuming, and that's why it is critical to have such a good base layer of mapping. The big thing that resonated with me out of your presentation, Emma, was the data management. We still can't access any of our coverage maps, and none of the spray records can actually be transferred into OpCenter or AgWorld. So hopefully moving forward, we can start to build, instead of everyone having their own platform and own software, we utilise the OpCenter and AgWorld integration at the moment with our normal spraying, and love the way that talks and how accurate it is with our shed inventory management. So that'll be the next sort of future bit, so we can actually track our data and our costs. But yeah, the support from SwarmFarm has been excellent, and they're always on the phone, or Tom's coming down to help on farm, which is great to keep it rolling. In the future, I think other bits that can come of it is VR spraying. We have a lot of different soil, AM map looks like you've just sort of thrown a paintbrush full of colours at it. We've got very variable soils. So being able to, where we see this fit is being able to vertebrate trace elements based on soil types. Some of our sands need copper, but the heavy country doesn't need copper. So if we can target applications based on that, we get the efficiency of the robot being small, but also improving our productivity within a paddock. Autofill would potentially allow us to move to another robot, and hopefully we can bring on sensors like mapping moisture in crop before fertiliser applications and mapping areas of snails and diseases so that we can actually vertebrate bait on the go with this spreader, or learn how to get a bit more micromanagement back into our broad scale paddocks, and finding more uses for it is a big part of getting a best bang for buck. So yeah, that's the end of my presentation. If you scan the QR code there, it should bring up a way to actually add a contact with my email and number already on your iPhone. But if not, take a photo. Just feel free to give us a call or send us an email if you have any questions.
Great. Thanks so much, Tom, and certainly very generous to put out your contact details for anyone watching today as well. Do have a couple of questions, and I'll go straight to them in the interest of time. So first one up for you. Rob Bramley asks, many proponents of farm robotics think that we will end up with lots of small machines, but in your case, waiting until the machines were big enough seems to have been the key. So Rob wants to know, will big always be best, in your opinion, Tom?
I think there'll be a size that probably maxes out its efficiency. I think, like for us personally, I'd rather have two 18-metre robots than one 36. I think the benefit without being able to get right into our corners of paddocks and not have variable boom heights. One thing about 18, the boom wings don't seem to roll through any hollows or contours, whereas if it was at 36, the cameras would get too far off the ground going through some of the angles. But yeah, I think that the 18 also fits in our controlled traffic system. So ideally for us, we'll move towards 18-metre harvesting, and it will be a straight 18-36. But I think there will be jobs that in the future with a different look will have the ability to go 36, whether that's weed zapping or very slow processes that creep along, and you can target small parts of your paddocks. But for this weeder operation that we're doing, I'm pretty happy with 18.
Great, thanks a lot, Tom. Couple more that I've got for you. So one that's quite intriguing. Is it necessary to watch the machine on screen all the time? What happens in that regard? No, they've got it. SwarmFarm have it set up pretty well with their notification system. So most of the time, once it's all set and rolling well, you can just sort of leave your phone, and but you can also bring up cameras and watch it in real time if you want to check how it's going. So it works really well, and there's been times where I've had it rolling and gone into town for a meeting and just checked at the coffee shop to make sure it's still going. And yeah, they're the times where I'm glad we've certainly got it. Yeah, that sounds a perfect arrangement, Tom. So one last one very quickly. What about green on green? If you aren't using it, why not? So our future goal would be green on green. I can really see the benefit of being able to go across canola early 3 or 4 times and pick off ryegrass, because that's our biggest weed, or most challenging weed that we've got. When we signed up, we were more worried about making sure we got autonomy on farm working well, and they already had the weed-it system working pretty reliably, and the green on green was only new. So for us, we thought, let's get autonomy working well. And then once green on green becomes a reliable system and built to match an autonomous platform, that's probably the key that needs to be figured out. And once that's working well, then we'll probably look at
adopting a green-on-green camera system.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Tom. So there is a lot of interest in this topic as expected. However, we will have to leave the discussion there just in the interest of time. So for a couple of outstanding questions there, we'll take them on notice and put out some responses. Thanks very much for your time today, Tom. And I think we're going to let you go now so that you can get back to your farm jobs. And what I'd like to ask the audience to do now is we will have a very short poll on the first two sessions that will launch. So again, we'd love to get your feedback. And while you're doing that, I'd like to now start off with our industry panel. So first up for that, I'd like to welcome Peter Thompson, who growing up as a farmer's son used his keen interest in technology to delve into the world of precision tech. Over the past 17 years, Peter has held various roles across sales, engineering and support, always working closely with the end users to address their needs. For the last 8 years, Peter's been deeply involved with CNH and the Case IH brand, where the focus has been on advancing the future of precision technology in agriculture. Let's welcome Peter, and I will now hand over to you to take us away.
Yeah, thanks, Jane, and thanks to the SPA committee for providing this opportunity to. Sorry, something's ringing. This opportunity to talk about our approach to autonomy. So, I guess with our approach to autonomy, automation, I guess, is the key part of it here. We're not looking at just an unmanned tractor driving through the field. Like we see a car going down the road, but we're looking at it as executing a task and how successful we are executing those tasks. So the main objectives that we're looking for as the outcome is productivity. Are we being able to do this this task more effectively, more productive and more sustainable than doing it with the man labour? Also the quality of that task on terms of how good is the task being executed in comparison to as we do it today. Also costs, so the costs involved in managing these tasks, time, nutrients, chemicals, our fuel, etc. And then also the time that it's taking to set up and manage these tasks. Are we hitting an efficient time to execute these tasks versus the window that we've got to apply that? So we're also looking at, not just the machine control, but also the whole connected ecosystem around intelligent data. Obviously, we need that intelligent data there to drive the decision-making process around the automation of our machines. So firstly, we're looking at the agronomic systems, which are going to help us produce, the best possible crops at the lowest possible cost around managing that data. The second big one is our data flows. Like, how can we control this flow of data through our clouds? And the connectivity is critical to this point. So as you may have seen in the press, we've got a partnership now with Intelsat, which will give us in the future connectivity, which is going to be reliable, which is optimum, which is critical to controlling systems within the field and pushing data around the clouds, not only within our own internal systems, but with trusted and connected partners. So the third part there is we're working with solutions that are scalable. How do we work with partners and other industry bodies to enable this? No one manufacturer, I guess, is going to have the solution for all of our data flow and connectivity and management of those systems. It's about working as a collective in the industry and partnering with people to provide solutions and allowing us to then, through our implements, to execute that task. Then finally is, once the wheels are turning in the field with the machine, it's then analysing the effectiveness of that job, taking that task and then, analysing it, working out what we could do better, which I'll talk about more on the next slide. So, oops, did I go through a slide? Just go to this one. So we talk about a lot of our path to autonomy, but we're really talking about the automation to the path of autonomy. And you'll see in a lot of our machines today that we're implementing systems and processes that are automating pieces of the puzzle as we move along and providing a scalable approach to hitting our objectives of a fully autonomous vehicle down in the future. So no one level is better than the other. So starting at level 1 to level 5, we're basically trying to provide a modular system that will allow us to scale and to fit a farming system that is applicable to your operation. As Emma had said earlier, it's not all about just the hit a button and go. There's a lot more to it and the approach on how we actually execute those tasks. So we're aiming to have a system that is fully scalable from operating modes of 1 to 5 that fit into your autonomous needs within the farm. So lastly, we're building a solution that will hopefully work for you. So fit how you work with an emphasis on our research and continuously field testing with our customers and evolving and adapting our solution to be better over time. So this is a range from setting up your farm operations, your equipment, your software, to be as easy and automatic as possible. It's not just the automation of machinery, it's also looking at the automation of data. We've been collecting yield data for a long time. The adoption of actually interpreting and applying that yield data into variable rate applications essentially has not been widely adopted in the industry, more so because of the labour intensiveness and the skill sets needed to actually interpret that. But as time moves on, not just yield data, but our machine performance, our path planning, our applications of chemical, etc., is all looking at to automate those processes as well to drive you to a better bottom line. Our end goal is to basically create a system that is ultimately, press a button to deploy the system with all that back-end processes as simple as possible. Some of the examples you may have seen in the industry that we're working with partners and customers around the world are our autonomous grain cart systems and our autonomous tillage, where you'll see we have systems in place today which are automating the vehicle. And I mean, let's be honest, the automation of the vehicle itself is probably the simplest part. It's as we explained before, it's the processes and the data behind everything that is the critical point on how do we actually execute this and doing the right job. That's all I have. Thanks, Jane.
Thanks very much, Peter. Really great. Enjoyed those last graphics you had for us there. So, Peter, you'll be rejoining us for a panel Q&A before we wrap up today's event. I'll move across now to our next panel member, and that leads us to our next guest, Jake McHugh, who is responsible for John Deere's precision agricultural software and connectivity solutions across their displays and cloud-based system operations centre. This includes mapping, data management and monitoring capabilities. His core role is to support John Deere dealers and customers across Australia and New Zealand to ensure they are successfully utilising John Deere precision ag systems in their operations. Hello, Jake. Welcome to you, and I'll hand over.
Hi, thank you very much. Good to be here. Appreciate the opportunity. So essentially, I want to quickly start off by echoing some of the comments that were made previously throughout the operation. And autonomy is not just about adopting any one hardware, piece of hardware, any one piece of software or a solution. It is really about a change in mindset and a change in the way that we set up our work, that we execute our work, and that we manage our work overall. So I'll kick into it here and start off by saying many of you may have seen that we're currently testing an autonomous tillage solution on our 8R platform in the US. And a lot of people that I speak to and have told me that this must be some fantastic, space age technology that we're using to be able to bring this technology to life. And it's just simply not the case. In actual fact, a lot of the hardware and the software that our autonomous solution is using, we have available commercially today. It's just expanding on it. So I want to start by saying a lot of the hardware, a lot of the software, as well as those management techniques and the way that we manage our operations can be adopted today. We don't have to wait until 2030. We don't have to wait for another 2 or 3, however many years to start adopting this. We can do it today. As you'll see here, our receiver, our display, our current modem, as well as our implement control technology such as a true set here, that's all currently being used on the solution, which is all technology that we have at our fingertips today. And it's really about expanding on this, this current operating system for the farm, or what I like to call our Precision Ag Foundation, which includes our 4 key pieces of technology down there: our modem, our display, our receiver, and our John Deere Operations Centre. So it's all about getting used to utilising those technologies that we have available today and then expanding from there. So in terms of key requirements for autonomy, it's going to be Operations Centre, so particularly the mobile app. There's going to be connectivity, and it's going to be utilising those advanced technologies. They're the key themes that we believe are going to provide success to our customers when moving to an autonomous solution. So in terms of those advanced technologies, I'm going to do this in a roundabout way, if you like. I'll start with our advanced technology. So we're talking about our turn automation, if you like. So that's obviously allowing you to not only steer the machine down the field as you're completing the work, it's then going to turn that machine around when you get to the end of your run, when you get to the headland. We're talking about our auto path planning solution, which we can currently do on our Operations Centre and on our display. That's using implement guidance. We've seen in the previous slides that our autonomous tillage solution is utilising an implement receiver to guide that implement more accurately, so that the machine actually knows where that implement is. Right. So this is all a part of our G5 Advanced package, which is our advanced software package for our G5 displays, which is available today. These technologies can be utilised today. We want our customers and our growers to get used to utilising these technologies, because all of these technologies are utilised on that machine. All right, next is that connectivity piece. So it's been mentioned extensively here today already by some of the other presenters, and I'm going to echo those comments. And connectivity is key. Obviously, we're no longer there executing the work ourselves. We're no longer relying on an operator who we can talk to on the mobile phone or UHF potentially to monitor that work. We need to be able to have connectivity to make sure we can send the data to that machine so that it can execute it successfully, and we can monitor that machine and make changes on the go. So connectivity is critical, which is why we've focused on connectivity extensively in recent history at John Deere. It's a core piece of our offering, and moving forward, we're going to be offering satellite connectivity with access to the Starlink satellite constellation. All right, so this really, I really want to basically link back to what I said at the start in terms of changing attitude, obviously, and changing the way that we manage our work. So traditionally, obviously, we have all of this information about our physical assets on farm in our head. We communicate those to our operator either verbally or in writing to an operator so that they can go and execute on that work. Obviously, we're not going to be able to do that with an autonomous machine. We need to make sure that that machine has that information at its in the display so that it can then understand what it's working with and go and execute on that work. And that's why setting up your digital farm, your team, your equipment, products, your land, making sure it has an understanding your on-farm information so that it can then execute on that work is going to be critical for success. So this is links to the field of the future, if you like. So essentially, this is what a field may look like when we come to a fully autonomous solution. We're going to have to tell it, obviously, your boundaries. It's going to have to know headland. We're going to provide it with a full path plan, with a start and a stop point, potentially a loading and an unloading zone so that it knows, if I need more product, I know where to go. If I need to unload product, I know where to go to unload that product. I know where the entrance to the field is, so I know where that product's going to be going to and from, essentially. All right, and planning. So the way that we set up, we plan our work needs to change moving forward as well. Like I said, we're not just telling an operator, we're not just planning it ourselves. We don't just have our plan set up in a little notebook in the top pocket. We need to digitise those records. We need to provide those plans to the machine so that it has the information that it needs to be able to execute on that job. And that links back to that digital farm setup. And it's all about changing the way that we farm and getting that information from in here to a digital record. Monitoring is also going to be key. So instead of utilising our phone to be contacting your operators, monitoring them, saying, hey, how far through this field are you? How much product do you have left? How full is your tank, etc. We're going to be able to monitor that from our mobile phone so that we get an accurate idea of what's happening and we can make changes on the go. So that's a capability that we have today with our operations centre app, and it's all about changing the way that we manage our operations. There's lots of information at our fingertips now. We need to adapt and start utilising that and get used to the idea of monitoring the machine digitally. All right, and all of these functions combined is what's going to lead us to autonomy. So essentially, what I really want to ram home here is the fact that a lot of the technology that we have in our autonomous machine that we are testing today is available to all of our customers today. So we want our customers to begin using this, get used to managing your operations, setting up your work, executing your work in a new digital era, so that when it comes to adopting the autonomous solution, you're starting here and you're just doing a small leap. You're not having to start at the bottom and adopt all of these technologies that we already have at hand and we have had for some time. So we want our customers to grow towards autonomy and develop their skills as we develop our capability towards autonomy.
Okay,
thank you very much.
Thank you, Jake. And of course, you'll also be back for our panel Q&A. I'll now welcome our next guest and our final panel member. Welcome to you, Tom Holcombe. Tom represents SwarmBot. Can I have the auto cue? Sorry, Tom. Tom Holcombe is the West Australian Portfolio Manager for SwarmFarm Robotics. He joined SwarmFarm in 2018 after completing his engineering degree at university. Tom has recently moved to WA to support customers and understand how autonomy can offer value to different farming systems across the region, identifying opportunities for SwarmFarm's technology to add value to farmers. So good afternoon to you, Tom, and please tell us more about your work.
Thanks for that, Jane, and thanks for GRDC and Spark hosting this event. It's great to be a part of it. So, a brief overview on SwarmFarm. We started developing autonomy with a vision to allow for change in practices on the ground about 15 years ago now, and this vision is being realised today. So since late 2018, we've handed over the keys to over 100 fully autonomous machines that are delivering value to customers around Australia. One of them being the Longmires down at Beaumont, who we heard from Tom earlier today. So thanks for that, Tom. What we do is develop the autonomy through the robot itself. We then work with SwarmConnect partners to develop implements and attachments to go on board. The online platform of Farm Manager allows for all of the path planning and the detail that's required prior to the machine hitting the paddock. But the beauty with working with these SwarmConnect partners is that we can have developers locally delivering solutions at a local level. And as we saw, there's a snail bait spreader being set up down there at Beaumont, and that's a great example of something like that. But to start with, most of these integrations have been around spot spraying, as that's offered the greatest return on investment for growers to be able to utilise that technology in a different way and adopt automation. So some of the realised benefits that we're seeing on the ground, firstly, being on the paddock more often enables a greater opportunity to make a decision that may not have been previously viable. So a key example of something like that is the thinking around thresholds of when it's actually practical to have a machine out in the paddock. You know, it was sort of mentioned before there with Tom, you know, you're out there spraying 0.5% of hard to kill fleabane at an early stage or 20% of volunteer wheat. That's a decision that may not have, you know, may have been on the fence previously, but all of a sudden it's possible and economical to go out and do it. Secondly, these decisions are sometimes limited due to the available labour, particularly through busy periods when all other people are tied up. For example, the best opportunity to control something, marshmallow or fleabane, might be directly behind the header, and autonomy is helping create those opportunities in the paddock where we may not have been previously able to get out there. And finally, smaller, lighter weight machines, lower impact on the soil. Because we've built a machine from the ground up, we've been able to strip a lot of the complexity out of it, as they're not so much built around the operator. Yes, it's a lot. Yes, there are compromises. Things are a bit slower, but going out to 27 metres wide for booms and operating at 10 k's an hour, it comes back to that systems thinking change about how do I utilise the technology and open up those windows of opportunity and use 100% of window rather than just bits of it. So looking back over over the deliveries of these machines over the last few years, what's worked well for people and what hasn't? From what I've seen, there's a bit of a difference between customers that have got a lot of value out of the machine straight away and have been able to adopt that automation, and some that have probably struggled a bit more. The best framework that I've come across to follow this is probably what we're seeing here, is that digitise, analyse, optimise, and followed by automation, that being the final step. And something that's sort of been mentioned similar previously, but those that have got the most out of automation have got a lot of those foundations in place. They've digitised the farm already and worked through a fair bit of the optimisation already. You know, a big part of that optimisation, for example, is not putting up with areas that cause issues on conventional machines, as well as those with autonomy, and those areas that produce or reduce productivity. So this might be something as simple as shifting an obstacle that can actually be moved, making every operation through that paddock as efficient as possible, not just for the robot. The way that all of that data is being handled is changing from our perspective. As you get more different people with operating different systems, we're making it as efficient as possible to be able to transfer from one system to the next, just making that change process a whole lot easier. So practically speaking, what can be done to prepare for autonomy, whether it's in the next 5, 10, 15 years, however that looks for you? Ultimately, you know your farms better than anyone else. You know where the problem areas are and those which slow you down. So the question to ask, I suppose, is can anything be done about these areas, or is it just one of the compromises that needs to be made due to physical limits and constraints? I guess if everyone has an eye on those things or has it in the back of their mind, it's going to be a bit of a smoother process moving forward. So I guess that's all from me. Bit of a brief overview, but if you have any questions on how it might look for you specifically, happy to answer any questions and talk it through. If I don't have the answers, I can probably point you in the direction of someone that does. It'll probably be Tom Longmire. He might cop a few questions, but thanks for your time today, and reach out if you need.
Thanks so much, Tom. Again, very generous of you to offer that to the audience today. So now we'll bring back Peter and Jake along with yourself so we can take some audience questions. I am conscious we've just run a smidge over time, but I think it would be great just to get some closing thoughts. So, Peter, one to you. What is the time frame for full autonomy in about 20 words or less? Far away.
I guess it's really hard to put a definitive time frame on it. Obviously, we've got some internal, objectives to, have certain solutions in the market. I guess to really put a time on it is difficult because there is, so many variables still in place. And as I said, we're learning as we go with our customers.
Thank you. Yes, understandable. Jake, this one for yourself, it's fairly specific to what's the time frame for my tractor to be autonomously planting my crop? Any guidelines on that one?
Yeah, well, in terms of time frame for your machine to be autonomously planting your crop, again, we don't have a definitive time frame. We have committed, as a company, John Deere has committed to the fully autonomous corn and soy production system by 2030. So as a part of that, obviously, we're going to have an autonomous tillage, an autonomous planting, an autonomous application, autonomous harvesting, specifically, obviously, combine harvesting operations. So obviously, corn and soy, all of those applications effectively extend to small grains as well. So when we're talking about cereals and the likes of that, that is our commitment, is by 2030 we'll have that solution. In terms of when will we see our customers utilising this in Australia, planting their crops autonomously? Again, I don't have a specific time frame on that. It's just as we learn and grow and we feel like we have that capability and it is a foolproof solution, we will obviously update our customers, but it is something that we're still working towards. So don't have a definitive answer, but it's in the works.
Thanks very much, Jake. And just a final one to yourself, Tom. Emma spoke about automation as applied to component tasks or entire processes. Everyone else is focused on automated machines. Data issues were common to all. Is an automated data acquisition management system a critical enabler here? Do you have a reply for that question? Fairly lengthy one.
Is an automated data acquisition management system critical enabler here? No, I don't think so. I guess from what we've seen, we've worked with a range of different customers and people that are using different systems. So we've got the ability to go directly into go and map a field with a paddock, map a field with a GPS straight off the machine, and then take that system or take that information straight into our platform. So I wouldn't say the automated data acquisition management is a critical enabler. There are certainly ways around it to be able to handle that information externally.
Okay, a quick one that's caught my eye, I'll put to all three of you. Do you think Australian farmers are early adopters compared to the United States? There's been a question to you, Tom, a yes or a no? Or an abstain, you don't have to answer.
Yeah, I think so. Australian farmers have to innovate to survive. They've always been, I believe, early adopters of technology.
Yeah. Jake and Pete, I think I see you nodding there, so maybe we can take that as a yes from our panel. All right, well, we did have quite a few questions coming through there, and sadly we will have to wrap things up just in the interest of time. So we very much thank Peter, Jake and Tom for joining us today, and any further questions that you do have after this event, please feel free to send them along to SPA and we'll take them on notice with the ones here today that we haven't been able to get to, if you'd like some further information to follow up. So I would now invite you all to provide your feedback for the final time for today's event via the poll tab, and your feedback enables GRDC and SPA to continue to bring you industry-leading events. So we really appreciate your time there. And sadly, because it was very enjoyable, that brings us to the end of today's GRDC SPA event. Before we sign out, I'd like to again thank the presenters, Emma Leonard, Tom Longmire, Peter Thompson, Jake McHugh and Tom Holcombe. It's been a real pleasure to have them with us today. Again, your feedback very much appreciated. The survey remains open after the close of the event. Thank you to everyone for watching and participating today, and we're wishing you all the best for the rest of 2024. And until next time, it's goodbye from all of us.